In the next stage of this project, let's put a design inside of some of these photos that we recently touched up. The first one we're going to do is the Studio Photoshop document. Remember, for this one, we've got a facade that's in perspective that we changed the color of. Let's place our design into it by going to File, down to Place Embedded, locate the banner TIFF, and say Place. Now, we need to scale this down by a certain percentage, so before we commit to it, let's go up to the very top, and with the link turned on, let's choose 73% to type in the width or the height. Now we can hit the checkbox to commit to that transformation. Finally, with the Move tool selected, I'm going to click on this edge and drag it up until it's just about parallel and aligned with this edge of the building. To make it look like it's in perspective, we need to do a Distort transformation. Under Edit, Transform, you can choose Distort. If that doesn't work, you can also hold down the Command key to click on any of the edges to drag it down. I'm going to drag this down until this bottom edge lines up nicely with this other edge. Also with Distort, you can hold down the Command key and you can click on individual points and get those to be aligned perfectly with every corner. We'll do the same up here too. Click and drag till it's up, and then click and drag down until this top edge is nice and aligned with all the edges of that facade. Once it's all set up, you can go to your check and commit to that transformation. To make this a little bit more appealing, let's add a little bit of a drop shadow to this bottom edge. In the Layers panel, with your banner layers selected, you can go down to the bottom of your Layers panel and click on the FX, and then scroll to the bottom and choose Drop Shadow. This will add a little bit of a drop shadow to your design. From here, we can set it to be Multiply and make sure your color is black. We'll set the opacity to be 75% with an angle of 125. We'll set the distance to be 10 pixels, spread of 0, and a size of 5 pixels. From here, we can say OK. That little bit of a drop shadow makes it pop out just a little bit more. Now that we're done with this, let's go up to File and down to Save. To save our Photoshop document, you can say OK to the options and you can close it out. Next, let's do a perspective warp to wrap something around the building. If you notice that you've got a recent image open for your Office Photoshop document, you can select it and have it automatically opened. Photoshop has some pretty powerful tools that will let you correct any of the perspective lines on a given image. In order to do this, let's go up to Edit and down to Perspective Warp. This tool will let you click on a given area. So I'm going to click on this right-hand side and notice that it creates a little perspective grid. We're going to apply this grid to the right-hand side of our building by clicking on each of the different handles, and let's drag them to fit along the edge of our image. I'm going to drag all the way down to this area. And this last one on the bottom, we're going to get it to line up as best as we can. So right about there. Let's create another one on this side. Again, click on the side to create a new image. This one's going to align to this edge. You can see when it snaps, it'll automatically snap to there. Let's get this one to align to this edge, as well as to down here too. Now, if yours is off by a little bit, that's okay. I'm not just lining up the bottom edge, I'm also looking at these to line up with the edges that are inside of the windows in this plane. So if necessary, we can drag these down until they line up really nice along this edge too. Once again, if yours is off by a little bit, that's okay. Once we're ready to commit to it, we can tell it to go to warp mode. This will allow us to click on any of these handles and to warp our image until it's completely straight. There, now that we've got our image nice and straight, we can go up and commit to this transformation. Finally, let's go in and let's choose our regular crop tool. Let's crop off any edges that are not necessary. Now you can see when I crop this, it's giving me a forced ratio. We want to make sure our ratio numbers are set to nothing. So click on Clear, make sure ratio is selected. This will allow you to set the height and width to be whatever you want it to be without it being constrained to a specific ratio or proportion. We just want to get rid of any unnecessary bits that are from here. Once it's done, make sure Delete Crop Pixels is select, and then we can click the checkbox to commit to that transformation. Now to place some artwork inside of this area so that it's in perspective, let's go to our Layers panel, and let's create a new blank layer. Clicking on the little plus sign gives you a blank layer with nothing in it. Now we can go up to File and Open, and let's open up our banner TIFF. We can go up to Select All, and with everything that's selected in here, let's go to Edit and Copy. Once it's copied to our clipboard, we can safely close out this image, and then we can jump in and create our vanishing point filter to place it inside of this building. Then we can go up to Filter and choose Vanishing Point. This is going to open up our Vanishing Point editor. Notice over on the side, we got a variety of different tools, and it's just a couple of tools. The tool we're going to use is the Create a Perspective Plane. Make sure your grid size is set to be about 100. To create your plane, you can click on a starting point, which will be the top corner of the building, and then go down to right about here, just above that second set of windows. Then we can go over, following that line, and then go up all the way to the top of our building. Notice now that this creates our little grid plane. To edit the grid, we can click on the top edge. Let's bring it down to be about halfway between here and then about halfway between both of those. Now that we've got a grid plane on this right side, hold down the Command key as you click and drag, as you click and drag on the handle here, and this will create another grid plane. From here, you can click this bottom edge, and let's let it match the bottom of these as well too. Again, you can eyeball it, but it should be about halfway between the top and the bottom of those windows. Or go to Command V to paste this into your design. Then we can click on our object and drag it into this area. Notice now that it automatically snaps and selects and distorts itself into this vanishing point. To make this easier to move around, go to your options and turn off Clip Operations to Surface Edge. This will allow you to see whatever is being clipped off. From here, we can transform this by choosing our Transform tool. Then you can click on the bottom edge of it and drag it up into that area, and even the top edge can be dragged down until it fits nicely inside of that particular plane. Maybe we'll drag it over a bit more to fit corner to corner, edge to edge. Once this is done, we can commit to our transformation by saying OK. Finally, to make this a little bit more believable, let's add a drop shadow to it. With Layer 1 selected, once again, go to your FX menu and choose Drop Shadow. We'll set the drop shadow to be multiply. We'll set the opacity at 75, 40 pixels with a spread of 5 and 0 for the size, and say OK to that. From here, let's go up to File and save this image as a Photoshop document, and we can close it out. Now, both of these are some pretty extreme sets of perspective. If we open up our tanks Photoshop document, let's do one that's just a subtle little warp to it. Once again, let's go to File and Place Embedded. Let's choose our banner. This time we can scale it down manually until it fits nicely inside of this area just above the fence. Once it's inside, centered up inside of our tank, we can hit the checkbox to commit to its transformation. Now, in order to get this to warp, we only want to warp this upper edge. Go up to Edit, down to Transform, and choose Warp. With the warp selected, there's a variety of different options we can choose from. Under the warp options, choose Arc Upper, and then you can play around with the amount of bend that you want from this area. We can set our bend to be lower, and it will bring it down. It doesn't have to be a lot. We just want it to follow the curve of this upper edge. So about 5 or so is what we need to follow along that upper edge. Once we're done, we can hit the check to commit to that transformation. Once again, let's give this a little bit of a drop shadow by going to Effects and applying a drop shadow. We'll keep it at multiply 75, angle of 90. We'll set the distance to be just 5 with a spread of 0 and a size of 5. We'll say OK to that. That's all we needed for this one. Let's go to File and do a Save and save this up as a Photoshop document. Finally, let's open up the balloon Photoshop document. Once again, let's go to File and down to Place Embedded. Choose your banner TIFF and say Place. We need to scale this down to be about 40% inside of this area. And then before we hit the transformation, let's go ahead and turn on our warp by clicking on this icon. Once again, we can do a regular warp. Let's do an arc. This will arc the entire thing. And let's set the bend to be about 12. You can click on the name and drag it in. Right about there is good. If necessary, we can bring it down just a bit to keep it inside of this area. Now this is bending good on this edge, but we want this outer edge to also pucker out a little bit more. So from here, let's change it back to Custom, and this will give us some Bezier handles that we can click on the edges to bring it outward until this curve matches this curve. Let's do the same for this side. Just clicking on these handles and drag it out until this curve matches along the edge of this curve. If necessary, we can also get the top of it and let it bulge just a little bit more until it looks nice. From there, you can click the checkbox to commit to that transformation. As always, let's add a drop shadow to this one. The opacity of 75, angle of 120. We'll do this one distance of 3, spread of 0, and a size of 5, and say OK to that. One last time, let's go to File and do a Save to save the Photoshop document, and then we can close it out.